Call the meeting to order. I'll take the roll call. Clark is not here. Kevin,
Present.
Eric,
Present.
Gary, here. Jason.
Here.
Rob is not here. Mayor Arnold. Chief Wayman. And the G. Yep. And it's not.
Here.
Okay, and has everybody had time to look at the minutes?
Aaron sent that out today.
Yeah, they're great. So I did it off the video.
Yeah, I wanted to give a
So,
shout out to
as long as all
Eric
the-
because she did it very last minute. There were no
Right, as long
minutes.
as all the people that were here are correct and all the voting is correct, but like, it's the fact that it isn't particularly detailed in discussion with the phone.
We're gonna watch the movie.
Yes.
We have a motion to approve the minutes.
Anybody can make that motion.
Except you and me.
Yeah, motion to approve the minutes.
Second. Got to vote.
Oh, vote, yes. Everybody vote to approve the minutes?
Yeah.
Thank you. Then I'll read the goals. The use safety is our guiding principle and propose recommendations that are unbiased, transparent, and administered fairly. Be a valuable partner to the SS4A task force. We continue educational programs to introduce complete street concepts to residents, employers, and city employees. Work towards developing Webster Grove's crosswalk guidelines to make our streets safer for pedestrians and to assist the city with prioritizing improvements along with the design and budgeting process. Improve, clarify, and publicize the communication process between citizens and TAG. Does it look like we have any visitors tonight?
We do have,
Oh, I'm
Councilman
sorry.
Esmeyer and Lauren Wright as a guest, so if you want to do public comment.
Okay.
Looks like she's got her
And
hand
ready to
raised.
go.
There's the
Okay.
talk.
And we'll-
So if you go back to her,
I'll promote her to a panel or,
if you just go back, you can allow to talk. Yeah.
it's just, 3 minutes for public comment. We don't typically, comment on public comments, just as a reminder. So I will run a stopwatch, but hey, Lauren, you're not on mute anymore. Can you hear us? And
Yes, can you hear
talk?
me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. So I missed that part you just said a moment ago that you 3 minutes for public comment, but you don't typically, what was that?
We don't typically respond to public comment in a meeting, but
Okay.
we'll give you 3 minutes when you're ready and you go ahead and
Yeah.
start.
Yeah, thank you for your time. My name's Lauren. I have lived here in Webster Grove since 2023, and my home is located at a four-way stop on South Rock Hill Road. And it felt necessary for me to finally reach out and speak up about kind of what we see happening around our home. We've been completely floored by how horrible people are driving on our road, particularly. We routinely every single day see people going double the speed limit, disregarding stop signs, screeching to a halt when they do actually clock their stop signs. Many aggressive drivers intimidating other drivers, pedestrians, and we've seen several collisions and countless near misses just at our four-way stop right there. And I work from home. I sit there all day and watch this kind of unfold. But just a few weeks ago, we had another distracted driver who ran the stop sign and hit a very large truck. Their SUV left the road entirely. So they must have been going so fast. They took out the stop sign and they landed on the front steps of our sidewalk. And this was an hour when children were walking to school and people are out exercising, out walking their dogs. This also happens to be the exact spot where my own toddler will stand out in our front yard and wave to school buses in the morning. And if we had by chance been there that morning, I hate to think about what could have happened to either of us. So I just wanted to, I know you can't answer the question, but I would like to ask everybody or have you think about like, will it take something tragic occurring on our streets, not just mine, the ones of many residents that have apparently been pleading for help for some time on their own streets with this issue with driving in cars. Before the city of Webster Groves implements some sort of speed reduction measures where it's needed most. And that's all I had to say. Thank
Hey
you so
Lauren,
much.
what intersection are you at? You said South Rock Hill.
South Rock Hill and Baker Avenue.
And Baker.
Yes. And we lived in the city and we, saw our fair share of that driving when we lived in the Shaw neighborhood, and all kinds of stuff happened there, but we just never expected to see such kind of blatant disregard for very simple traffic laws. I don't know how so many people are running stop signs and hitting other cars in broad daylight. It's been, or almost, I hear honking and swerving, and I have tire treads in my side yard from cars coming up off the street and driving on the sidewalk apparently at some point. So people are just going way too fast is what I think is happening. And I know there's got to be a solution to it before something bad happens. People are only getting more distracted, it seems like. So that's all.
Okay, Lauren, we appreciate your comments, and
Thank you.
I guess we'll evaluate that moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This just some feedback. I did receive a complaint at Rock Hill and Baker. I've been working with Sinan on that. We've had some correspondence. We've run the accident data at that location. I think in the last 5 years, we've had 5 accidents thereabouts. So that's kind of what we've looked into so far. I don't have any concrete answers for traffic calming measures at this time, but I can tell you that we have begun our conversations on that.
I don't know if I've asked this question before, but we talk a lot about crash history when we look at these locations and the number of crashes in 5 years. Is there a benchmark? Do we have a citywide average? What is bad? I mean, to me, 5 at a 4-way local can be actually bad, but I don't know right what our benchmark is. So that would be really helpful.
5
and 5. Yeah.
5 and 5 years, right? 5 and 5 years.
5 and 5 years, I believe, is what the stats are.
Do you have any, like, what kind of crashes are they? Road departures or they?
I don't hold that from memory right now. Typically, they say if you MUTCD looked at that, if they say there's 5 accidents in a year period of time, and they would suggest that we could look at some traffic calming measures. There's not always a good solution to that. It is a 4-way intersection controlled by stop signs at this time. So obviously there's a bit of traffic enforcement involved with the police department. That we can run details there as well to try to curtail some of that driving behavior. But
Is there a stop sign visibility issue at all that you're aware of there?
I-
I drive that road all the time,
Trying to
and it's,
I'm trying to think if anybody's got bushes that
there's not a level,
Right
there's not a
there.
grade or curve at that. It's a pretty straight
Okay,
yeah,
piece of road.
and it is it's not too far from the train tracks, but I'm thinking of the right intersection, so it's kind of a place where.
Hey,
so
Eric,
many
you
people
give
might
Carrie
be
permission to share her screen.
in a hurry, they've been stopped at the train tracks,
Yes.
or they're
All right.
just coming through there, and then it's a big downhill,
yeah.
to
Have we
kind of
done
the next stop.
pavement,
sign.
have we done any pavement friction analysis?
So if you go over to 3 dots there, Eric. No, don't do that. Go down.
Wherever you share, go to there. Go down to the green
So
dot
go down to participants. Let's try that. Well, no, that won't work.
in the middle on the bottom, under Lauren's name.
Wait, I got it. I think I got it.
Whatever.
Let's see. It's making you a speaker, so. Let's see, it's letting me share. There we go.
Again, we haven't fully done Public Works hasn't done a analysis on this yet to see for recommendations. It's one of the things brought to my attention within, I believe, the last month or so. So, I mean, we move as quickly as we can on these things, but we're still evaluating.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't have any answers for sightline or that at this time, other than it's on the to-do list.
I know people are excited when they're behind me on my bike, kind of down that stretch as I'm leaving Grange Trail. But yeah, it's.
You're on traffic calming, Jason.
I am, traffic calming and comment making.
Yeah, right. Not driver calming, traffic calming.
Well, I think it's hard when, as Lauren said, there are a lot of near misses that we
Right.
can't really
Yeah.
calculate or evaluate, so.
I guess what I can tell you that we'll do is I'll talk with Sanan on this issue. And see if he has any recommendations moving forward. We can also do some traffic details from the police department angle. As a temporary, but as far as significant road changes, that I'm not sure of yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would be curious, she said 5 crashes in 5 years.
I believe that's the thing.
Like I would, and I don't know whether that's good or bad, but what we could do is find out how many other crashes have been on that section of Rock Hill from downtown Webster to the highway. And is 5 in 5 years, is that more than other areas of South Rock Hill on that stretch?
I was just gonna say, anytime you enter into a four-way stop where everybody is stopping.
Nobody understands how stop.
Nobody
Understands how it works.
understands how they work, but, the potential for, if people are in a hurry and they're coming to a quick stop, the potential for rear ends is pretty high. Rear end type crashes. So if you were gonna see a lot of crashes, unless people are blatantly running the stop sign, you're gonna see a number of rear end type crashes. But the running the stop sign, I would guess if you did a detail and watched stoplights, people run the stoplights, run red lights too. It's become pretty blatant throughout the region. So, yeah.
I don't think
would-
sightlines are an issue there.
I was gonna say, I would look at that and
Well,
I
it
would,
used to be top left corner used to have bushes that were grown out, but I don't think they're there anymore.
I will say Baker has a crest somewhere right in the middle, so you're coming uphill from both directions, so you're headed downhill. If you're going towards that intersection, you're headed downhill.
But Baker, what's the speed limit on Baker? Like 20 miles an hour?
Sure is.
25? So, cause I would assume the speed issues are from traffic on Rock Hill.
Rock Hill's 25 as well.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, nobody does.
Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know the intersection then of Rock Hill and Swan, my daughter lives near there and I take that way to her house and the sight lines are a little bit iffy there with bushes. And I've seen some close calls there on Rock Hill
Is there
also.
a
It's
stop?
fine. It's a 4-way.
Yeah.
But the one stop sign is a little hard to see. with the bushes.
We can make it a point to clear along Rock Hill all those sight lines for the signs, make them a bit better visible.
Yeah. I mean, no.
Just trying to find the email that I sent, but I can't find it on my phone. Like I said, that's on our to-do list. Sanan and I will continue to work on that, and it might be something like putting signs about the warning of stop ahead or something along those lines. That can be done without any kind of creation of an ordinance.
Thank you. Eric, do you want to?
Oh, I mean, the first meeting's in November.
Ah,
Start having updates. November.
Yeah.
Yeah. When is our meeting?
It is the 17th.
So we'll have an update in December. Is ours the 18th?
no, it's the 17th.
Oh.
It's the same day.
oh,
we'll have an
Yeah,
update.
it's, no, it's at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's at
Yeah,
11.
be fresh off the,
Yep.
right off the
Hot off the press.
presses. Thank you. That's what I was trying to say.
okay, and Mayor Arnold,
Uh,
to discuss the highlights from the September boards and commissions.
yeah, so we had our annual meeting of boards and commission chairs and largely that's to talk about a process, remind people of sunshine law. To be honest, you all are among the very best at adhering to process and sunshine procedures. So at least given the stories I've heard over the course of the year, so I'm not gonna go into too much detail, just a couple of things. Remember, if there is a quorum of you present, in this case 4, you really cannot discuss the specific business of the commission and certainly can't talk about what you want the commission to take as an action.
If there is or is not.
You can do, if there is a quorum, you can, there's a quorum, you can, but if you are together, if there's a quorum in an official meeting, let me put it that way, you can. But if you happen to all run into one another somewhere in the city, say you're listening to music, sitting, and there is a quorum of you, you really can't discuss official business because that's not an official meeting. And we don't want outside of the actual recorded agenda meeting, people to be making decisions about what the TAC should be doing. You can certainly have informal conversations among yourselves outside of meetings as long as you are not making specific decisions and there are fewer of you than that quorum. Where this sometimes gets tricky, documents want to be shared, this idea of a Google document that needs to be shared and used by multiple people, we cannot do that. And the reason we can't do that is it is actually making decisions or can perceive to be making decisions. And so you may circulate documents amongst one another as long as there is an official Webster Groves, Missouri government address on there. So what that means is it gets filed within our system. So if Eric and I are both copied on there, that's fine. If you want to copy the city clerk, that's fine too. But it's just a matter of making sure we have a repository of the changes in that document as they are circulated through the commission. Does that make sense? Did I say that wrong in any way that you're aware of, Eric? Susan, you were there as well. Yeah, I think we're okay. The other thing we talked a lot about was how boards and commissions make requests of council or for council time. You all are very good at using the formats and the forms, and you never just sort of say, do this tomorrow to us, because a lot of people think we can just make room on the council schedule next week. And that's hard. So this,
No, you can't.
this group, yeah, you know, all people. I mean, in fact,
You know that.
you are our poster child for patience. How about that?
Like that.
And then I think the last thing we talked about, we do have a new director of public, not director, a public relations, public engagement staff member. And we do ask that when this commission has something that they might like him to do, that it goes through the staff member in that way. And there's plenty of time so that we can manage his time efficiently. Right now, he is working on a huge overhaul of our website and a focus on actual good searchability so that instead of just getting there, you can actually find things when you get there. And so that is an ongoing project. But so we ask that you just work through Eric in order to make those requests of his time, whether it's videos or flyers or whatever, and that we give him enough lead time that it is workable in the schedule. So I think that's sort of the highlights, but I did want to take the opportunity to thank you all for, you know, basically being very good adherents to what we need to do to make sure that we are transparent and accessible to residents in the work we do, and for being really patient with council because we have made you work really hard.
She raised her hand, so.
Yeah.
She has to look,
So,
she has to look.
yeah, she did.
Oh, she did. Okay.
Okay, you need to lower your.
The host, yeah.
There we go. Trying to just get the picture.
Allow you to speak freely.
Okay.
Raise your hand.
Thank you, Arnold. Did everybody get a chance to read the comments that Clark sent about the city council work session and meeting? Discussion of the parking proposal. Kind of turn this over to Carrie, since she's our member who's been involved in this process the longest, and give us an overview her thoughts on what went on in the meeting.
So I also wasn't able to attend and I watched the videos. I agree with Clark, even before I read his email. I think a lot of our proposal got misrepresented. And I think maybe the best way, I'm gonna acknowledge that in the timeline, I think this was pointed out, this first came to us in December of 21. And we started putting together our first set of proposals in summer of 22. Our presentation to council was actually November of 23, not 24. So the timeline was off by a year, which means that it was 2 years ago. So since that time, I think there's been maybe one change on council, but there's been a lot of change within our TAC. There's been a change of our staff liaisons, plural. So I'm thinking maybe it's disappointing because I do want to say, we put a lot of work into a presentation that we did in November to talk about this for council and staff. And I'm pretty sure each one of them got a copy of it. So it would have been great if people would have had or taken the time to review that, because it seemed like there was a lot of confusion on what we were proposing, even though we had kind of laid it all out in a PowerPoint. So what I want to do and what we thought was appropriate would be to walk through that PowerPoint so that people that are new to this can see what we officially proposed, and making sure we're all on the same table, because at a minimum, we're gonna be asked to start implementing this. So I'm sharing the original. This is the proposal we gave back in November of 23. So started with our mission. I'm gonna go through really fast, by the way, because I know we have limited time. So
Carrie, was I involved in this at all?
no, this was before you.
Okay.
Yes, so that's what I.
The one I referenced was the one that you guys presented to council on 24. That's the one I referenced.
Did we do another presentation in 24?
Yeah, because in 23, we asked about, I think if I remember correctly, and I haven't watched this meeting in a while, the 23 was, we like all of this going forward. It sounds good. Our big sticking point is how and what do we do retroactively? And I thought you all came back after that with another presentation.
Clark was there, Chris was there, I think
Yes.
Susan was there.
Was that a formal like PowerPoint presentation, or was that just a discussion?
It was.
That was in our packet?
It was with council.
Yeah, okay.
Because I submitted that back in 24, the original.
Yeah.
Parking. When I
Okay.
took over.
Well, I don't have maybe this, and I think this is part of the problem. This has been going on for so long.
Yeah,
I'll also say that I think this has been going on for so long that there were questions that came to us that we tried to respond to that got captured in one way and maybe not another. There were the group ourselves that we weren't always in unanimous alignment, but we went with majority opinion. But there were answers provided and statements made from the minority opinion that I think blurred the lines of what we were proposing. So I would like to, I think it'd be helpful for us to walk through. This is what, I don't have a copy of what was done last November. Yeah, I
So it
can.
Be a little bigger.
Yeah.
Carrie, I'm just gonna grab my computer. You can keep
Sure,
going.
no problem.
Thank
You've
you.
seen this,
Yeah.
so, here we go. Let me do from first. Okay, so this is, I'm gonna go fast, but what led to this was in 21, we had a couple different things. We had already been approached about narrow driving lanes by some people who had, trucks trying to get down the street, buses trying to get down streets that were full of parking. At one point, there might even be in here, we had a message from someone driving a bus who had to back out of a street because they couldn't proceed all the way down a street they were supposed to drive down. So that was one concern. Another concern that came to us, and this is what really kicked us off, was that a street in North Webster or Webster Park area asked for parking restrictions. So like we do as a group, we just all witnessed, we all started kind of brainstorming about it. And the city ended up we were like, well, what are the parking restrictions? And the city sent us the existing parking restrictions. And I'm gonna go ahead real quick and see, I think it's in here. This is what we received. So all you need to know is that every different color on that map is a different parking restriction. And as a group, we looked at this and thought, wow, this is so confusing as a resident, as just a user. And we took I mean, those are pictures of some of the different, I think they're all slightly different. But the overall effect is to prohibit student parking on the streets.
Those ordinances?
Yes, so we actually also dug into ordinances, and tried to understand kind of how this came about. So backing up, the third kind of related problem that we saw from all of that was that we did not have standard criteria. So we had been asked to evaluate new stop signs, and we had been given, here's the city's stop sign criteria. And we were aware that, there was a sidewalk request criteria, and we thought, shouldn't there be a parking request or parking restriction request criteria? So that is how we started to go about that. These are little pictures that show, so when we talked about it from a safety perspective. We have streets that are anywhere from 16 to almost 40 feet wide in the city. So if you're looking at a 16-foot wide street, that's what it looks like, the 22 feet wide, 24 feet wide. So, and we have, as we all know, various levels of parking on any given street. So what we came up with was really a 2-tiered plan. And this is what I want to drive home, because this is really what has gotten extremely muddy. It is a 2-tiered plan. The first tier is anyone can make a request, anyone, that says, I think this street is unsafe. I can't make my way down it. And that includes people driving buses or trash trucks or residents on any street. Then the evaluators, which in this case we assumed would be TAP, like we are the ones that evaluate other requests. We simply look at this set of criteria. If your street is less than 18 feet wide, you get no parking restrictions on both sides of the street. And that is based on, we talked to Waste Management, we talked to Fire Department, we found out the width of their widest vehicles, everything. And that is what that's based off of. And the width of, a standard car is about 6 feet wide. Plus people like to have a little clearance on each side to make sure you don't hit rearview mirrors. So that's what that is. And that is step 1, tier 1, purely based on safety, no other factors whatsoever. So once that is enacted, once that happens, and this is showing you nice little graphics that somebody made at one point who's no longer even on our committee. Yeah. So they, this gives you an idea, right? So a standard parking lane, for the record, is 8 feet, but that's leaving you a bit of a buffer because, like I said, a standard car is about 6 feet wide. So that still leaves, if you've got 8 feet on either side of a 26-foot wide street, leaves you 10 feet at minimum down the middle, right? So it's still tight, but it allows for that kind of, we don't always have a street parked 100% on both sides.
How wide is the fire truck?
The fire trucks are actually only, I think they said 8 foot wide, but if they have to put extenders out,
Yeah, right,
those
of
can get
course,
like 10 to 12.
That's
So,
everybody
yeah.
parks,
So these aren't necessarily to scale, but it gives you an idea.
right?
Yeah, so this is where it came from. So, and this is kind of based on, again, we thought this was very important because, and I want to, one of the words that kept getting thrown about during the council meeting was not unanimous, uniform. And, I think the quote was, we don't want McDonald's of streets. And that is not at all. It is a uniform code, but it is applied based on individualized locations. So I want to point that out. I think that some of the ways that it was kind of discussed weren't necessarily, I thought, fair. So also we found out, for history's sake, digging through how these parking restrictions came about originally. If you read the code, and I could pull it up, but I don't want to flip back and forth on you guys. It's blurry. We have multiple areas. We have residential parking zones. We also have commercial parking zones, but then there was something called some other kind of zone that got restrictions. The residential parking zones, the way to get those, a 42 city code, is to ask, one person asks the chief of police, and the chief of police can basically grant it. So, we looked at that and thought, I think at first time I said that to the mayor, she was like, what? So, we all thought it was time to revisit these. It's fair 20 years later or more to revisit these. And say, is that still the way that we think is fair and impartial in our city? So, again, here's kind of, this is how, I mean, in the past, those restrictions came about through very different means. You did have to make a request, but you didn't always have to have, depending on what specific area you were in, you didn't always have to have, what's the word I'm looking for, petition. In it, there was various, and when there was a petition, there was various percentages held. And it came about with this, which at a minimum is confusing to the users of our city. And at a maximum is also unfair to the people who pay for the streets. And I'll say that because we as a group felt, I think that was one of the things we did feel unanimously about is we all pay for all streets. So just to throw back to one of the council statements, I think the idea that my taxes pay for all streets, but I only get a say in what happens on the one I live in on seems completely unreasonable. But that's just Carrie Falkenrath's opinion. But as a group, we all thought that our streets, we all pay for them and they are for all of us.
Was that the council's position?
There was one council member who said, like, if you don't live on the street, you shouldn't get a say what happens on parking on that street. And I thought that seems
Because we had
unfair.
discussed a lot, the streets belong to everyone.
Everyone, yeah. Even if you don't, I mean, in the idea, I think that what the council members were talking about was who gets to petition if you don't live on a street, which has been a sticking point of this whole proposal. And you know, is it fair for someone who doesn't live on Lockwood to say, hey, I think Lockwood should not have a parking restriction. I should be able to park. And so that's been a sticking point for a while, because we have all these areas with all these parking restrictions. And it was said several times during the council meetings that these people are very happy with the system. Well, of course they are. They live in a protected bubble, you know, where the rest of us don't get to use the street. So I think that's another point that we as a group would argue that just because the people who live on those streets are happy with them, I don't see why they wouldn't be. Like, they're getting everything they want and more, and everybody else is left out in the cold. So anyway, this is the history in our proposal, in a little bit of Carrie's color commentary. So this is, you know, what we thought was equity, that we should have a very transparent system, that we should have it out there. It should be applied the same for every single street and for every single resident. And we should take kind of the subjectivity out of who talks to who and who makes a personal request to, you know, who and all of that. So when we get to shared parking, that should be step 2. And even here, we launched right into it. And I think there was more conversation, but it doesn't even show up in this presentation. So as I mentioned, the first step would be my street doesn't, it seems like it's overparked, or it seems like I can't get down it. You know, can we have a parking restriction? Yes, you can. You can have one lane, one side no parking, or 2 sides no parking, depending on your street width. I'll also point out that if your street is 24 feet wide or more, our thing was that you shouldn't have a parking restriction because your street is plenty wide enough to allow parking on both sides and driving in the middle.
26.
I think it was a
26.
Sorry, 26 feet. So that was our kind of beyond 26 feet. You're lucky to live on a very wide street that can accommodate lots of parking. So then the step 2 would be if no parking gets enacted on your street, and now you find as residents, okay, we have no parking on one side, that only leaves us parking on the other, but that side is getting full. And we don't have room to park, and we think, you know, for whatever reason, doesn't even matter why, we don't think we have enough room to park. Then that group has a petition and applies for what was called shared parking, or you know, in this case, it would be like permit parking. And our idea for permit parking was that it be applied based on the density of a street. So you would just count the number of the houses per block, and that would give you an idea of how dense the street was. Pretty straightforward. I want to say too, straightforward measuring the width of streets. You can do that nowadays on Google Earth. If you're in any doubt, you can get out with a wheel and, you know, walk across. All you gotta do is walk across the street with the wheel and measure it. So we had offered to do both of those things along the way. as a group, just like we would do if we got a sidewalk, we don't get a sidewalk. If we got a stop sign request or anything else, we had offered to do those things. At various times, we were told we weren't allowed to go in the field and we weren't allowed to make any sort of measurements on our own. So everything we did after that, we kind of did off Google Earth, which by and large is
Pretty accurate.
It's pretty accurate. You know, if there's any question, if you came down to you right on the line, then maybe we'd ask staff to go measure it if we're not allowed to do that. I'll point out, I have all the PPE though, so I have all the vests and the equipment personally, but anyway, and one of the things we wanted about this shared parking policy was transparency again, so that everybody had the same access to parking. This wouldn't be cookie cutter, because if you lived on a street that had 5 houses, you obviously don't have the density need. You're probably not parking 50 cars. If you live on a house with 50 houses, you probably are parking 50 cars. So it's not uniform. It's just a uniform policy that then gets, you know, applied on a case-by-case basis depending on the system. So I'll share that. That's where we were. I think some of the questions we got, let me see if it's still, I wanted to bring up too, we also at one point got asked about how to implement this. This was a tough one for us because I'll also say we were asked how we think we should implement it, but we did ask for guidance on how the city would prefer to implement it, how they normally implement something like this, how, you know, any sort of guidance, and we got none. So we were kind of flying blind. So we did come up with some ideas. I know one of the things I wanted to point out, there was a 75% of residents had to vote for it. And really that was in response to coming up with some sort of policy way to
So it's 75% of all Webster Grove residents will vote on a per street basis.
No, it was here, and I think I'm going to, this is okay. This is where we went back and forth and things get muddy, right? But I think I just had it up. I'm gonna put it back up. It was 75% of people on that street had to ask for the shared parking, the shared. And that was purely based on the sidewalk policy, because we had nothing else really to go off of. Personally, I remember conversations that said, is that necessary? I know there was some conversation in the work session about like, how do you verify those people? Well, I mean, we assumed that that process was already there because that's the sidewalk policy. But I mean, do we need to do that? Oh, I'm not sure that our group felt strongly that we do. But that is something, you know, maybe with a little more guidance or working with Public Works, it would be easier for us to come up with an implementation plan, rather than working in a vacuum and not knowing how the city would want to implement something. But here's what, so process for implementation, I think we put through 2 different options. If this isn't in records, I can send this back out to Eric, but,
All I can say is this was not what was presented to me to present to council.
okay.
What you're showing me now was not the document that was presented to me.
Carrie, do you mind if we take a pause? And does everyone understand what the decision at council was and what we're?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, I maybe being the newest at, so thanks to a very rainy Saturday and a lot of coffee, I actually went back and kind of looked through all the stuff that Clark sent and went and watched. I watched the work meeting and then watched the actual council meeting. So what I felt like happened, and kind of what came before everyone was, it was more a question of what to do with the existing stuff. And that there had been a moment in time where there was this issue at the high school where there was a lot of requests for parking. But what I drew from it was currently that issue kind of took care of itself.
No, it didn't take care of
Well, no,
itself.
they added 70
Action by
parking.
this commission.
Yeah.
Essentially forced the school district to address it.
They added 70,
Yes.
they added 70 spots that helped with that issue.
It
but
helps with the
you-
issue, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This commission.
Yes.
But then I felt like what council decided was kind of a path going forward on new things. But no one could really come up with what do we want to do? Or do we need to do anything with the existing parking permits that are out there.
So what did the council decide?
So I'm gonna let Eric do this because he
Well,
presented.
And I was gonna share too, I screenshotted all of the discussion, so I think that would be really helpful. If I shared that, so go ahead though, Eric, and I'll share the
So,
picture.
basically, the council has decided on this. That the shared parking recommendations will be applied by case by case basis moving forward. So that's what we need to figure out.
That these guidelines?
These guidelines that Kara's talking.
What did we want?
Essentially, you wanted it, the other streets to also have this
Well-
application applied to us.
What we.
So they're gonna be applied moving forward, but they're not gonna go back and retroactively
Correct.
change existing.
Yeah, right.
So someone has to be a.
And so you're saying that our intention was to have it retroactively applied to.
Yes.
Correct.
Our intention
So-
was that it would be uniformly applied across the city.
So that decision's already been made. So all existing parking regulations that are currently in existence will remain the same. That said, I can just tell you that, like, the PowerPoint that you're showing wasn't the one that I received from, that I prepared. We also provide you, TAC with the city manager with a memorandum of our understanding of the proposal. Nobody at that time had any issues with that memorandum. At the presentation, Susan was here. She was also given an opportunity to speak about some of those concerns as well.
And let's be fair,
Yeah.
she wasn't on the agenda and didn't
Yeah,
have.
yeah, that's true.
It was just, I was fumbling around trying to say a few things that I thought would represent you all, and Susan had better words for them.
I think I genuinely tried to do
Can I
my,
say one thing too? I assumed you had met with Clark or spoken with Clark before your presentation.
okay.
But then Clark said, no, that had not happened. So I was a little confused during the presentation
So-
myself.
I would just say I tried to do my best to convey what you guys had outlined. It was, there are some challenges in that, you know, when you talk about density and you talk about determining what cars are parking on the street versus what cars live there. Like, as a police department, we can't run those plates. So there's some legal issues there. So there were some challenges with that.
Just like our car, my personal car was parked on my street a few months ago, and a neighbor called about it, said this car's been parked there for months. And the police came to my door and said, we got a call about this car, we ran the plates, we know it's yours.
That's an actual ordinance
We don't
violation.
have a problem with that.
That's
Okay,
an ordinance violation. You can't leave your car
So
in the same spot.
but I don't understand how that became part of. I don't.
There was a recommendation that, as I understood it, that if there was a street and they said over 75% of the people that are parking on the street don't live on the street, then it could come up for a permit, if I understood it rightly. I think the comment was you can't just randomly check the plates on a daily basis. to
Right,
see
but I don't see why we would have, I don't understand if you just drove through and said, yeah, this street's 75% parked. I don't know why it matters if it's residents or not. If residents are saying we don't have room to park.
Because in the proposal, it said something to the fact that if it's 75%, don't live on that street.
And, right, but I mean, I don't think, see, this is where we were asked to put something in there to pin down specific that we weren't necessarily thinking needed to be pinned down. Because, you know, if you have somebody say we can't park on our street, I don't know that we need to prove that it's non-residents, it's just, the point is it's overparked, there's no room to park. So, you know, but again, I feel like some of these things we got asked to add them and then they became roadblocks to our own proposal. And kind of used against us in a way.
So, let's see, how do I say this? We as a council are not always clear about what we asked for. And sometimes when we ask for things and we don't like the answers, we still, move forward. And that's the nature of a political body. And I will say this as well. I mean, probably most of you know that I've already been criticized for this in the Webster Kirkwood Times, and that's fine, that's part of the job. But this is also a politically very, it's much more difficult than you all are. As a policy thing, it makes perfect sense. As a political thing, there's a cost to this as well. Now, I'm just gonna leave that as well. So Carrie, I know you have a very rational argument for everything. I also know that that's not the only thing council is thinking about.
I understand that.
I know you do, but
Yeah.
I felt like I just needed to say it out
Yeah,
loud to
no, I
acknowledge
think
it.
that's very fair. I know it's
Yeah.
gonna be political, but I also feel like we are outsizing the opinions of 100 residents over the opinions of 20,000.
And that's fair too.
Yeah, and I feel like we're giving the 100 residents a very clear, open invitation to come air their concerns. And we're not giving, I think we hear the same from the other 19,000 residents if we put out the same question. And, you know, I'm not saying, I don't know exactly how we do that.
I can only respond to what comes my direction, and by and large, members of the community don't contact me with opposition against the permit parking that's in, what's in place right now. I don't receive a lot of complaints or opposition. There's been one very outspoken member that has made some comments. And there's been some positions in TAC on the feeling, but other than that, that I have not received much feedback from the community regarding the recommendation.
We heard a lot when we started this. I mean,
But as I tried to explain in the presentation, a lot of the issues, and Susan made the point, and I'm not trying to, this is not just a high school issue, but a lot of the parking centered around that neighborhood. And they've done some things to add some additional parking to their parking lots to help relieve some of the parking concerns of the neighbors.
I did feel like the takeaway from it, and I mean, when I went through it all, the number of years that were devoted to it, it was a ton of work, obviously, but then kind of looking at it from the point of the council vote, and then where do we go from here? This item of how do we take, and to your point, how do we give a voice to the 19,000, which sounds weird. But all I could think was somehow if, you know, we're at a point where we said, if you want to have shared parking or whatever, I think there's a way to do that now for a resident. But if you're someone who says, this place isn't fair right now, and somehow I was trying to think, is that, do we say you're a business in the area that's being impacted, or you're a resident somehow that's impacted by that? I think it's something, yeah, but you know, it has to have some clarity to it, but I think that's something maybe for us to wrestle with a little bit. I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, but no, but I think that's, I mean, I think that's kind of our takeaway from here is how do we qualify
So
who can challenge?
I
what's
put that down on paper, my thoughts on this.
Yeah, there are a number of council members who expressed that.
Yeah, that's what I
So
kept hearing,
yes, so
yeah.
I don't think it's out of turn for this.
So moving forward, the process would look something like this. There would be an online request. I would receive that request form, and the only way to do this is by block. I think we all agree on that. So if someone on the block has a issue, now that could be, Carrie, that could be the width of the street, and parking on that would be an option, and determining that with TAC, or it could be the request for the shared parking. Are you saying that one doesn't work without the other?
yes, that's what we're saying.
Okay, so basically we would I would receive that, it'd be filtered to me. I would take this and communicate it to you. TAC would then evaluate the request, given the guidelines that you all have set forth in this shared parking recommendation. From there, if you guys approve what that should be, then I would contact that person and we do the petition part of the process. Once it's up for petition, we'll review the position. I'll give it to TAC, and they can determine like density, street width, and all those things. And then Public Works will then have to go and evaluate those and do those length of street and density. And then from there, that recommendation would be passed to the city manager, or the chief of police, the city manager, and then have to go to city council where they would create another ordinance for that parking.
So I think our original idea, and I think it might help this process, is that the first step is purely street width. And that's it. That's the first step. If you have a problem with your street, the first thing we evaluate is how wide is your street? And should it have no parking on one side for safety? And that's, yeah, that's purely for safety. So if someone has a problem on any street, the first question we ask is it safely signed parking or no parking? And I think in a lot of cases, that might be the end of the story. Now, if somebody is starting with, my street's overparked, the first thing we would still do is say, should your street have no parking? Because probably part of your problem is the safe. And that would just immediately be a,
Again, I
yes.
have no issue with this.
Yeah,
That's the way it could work. That's fine. We can create that system and have it in place. That's kind of what council interpreted it is take this moving forward, use it as your guiding principles for future requests. And that's what we will do.
right.
I need to, now that I have a little bit better understanding, kind of off of what you said, I just need to finalize that in some sort of web thing as a piece of TAC.
Outside of the high school, are there streets that currently have current parking restrictions that we do not, or that we have complaints about or receive comments about?
I'm not sure if we've received any outside of the high school.
And there were comments about, I thought it was interesting in the, Bompart. I think it is that there's restricted parking, if that's not being used, that might impact the businesses.
Yes.
And then I think, Webster University.
There's some near Webster
then
University.
there
which
was
is also-
some comments.
So this stuff happened before I was even public
Yeah.
tech, and I've been here a little over a year.
Yes,
So I haven't really had a horse in the,
I know, which is why I
Right.
think we should have done this, and it would have been probably very helpful to do this.
from the outside
a while
looking in,
ago.
if city council adopted our proposals for streets moving forward, if we don't have active issues or think we have active issues with existing streets, isn't that still a pretty, I mean, that's a good thing, right?
Yes, and I think I meant to lead with this. I think, and essentially they've adopted what, but a
Yes.
big sticking point for us was that this should be the policy across the entire city. And what we're doing is grandfathering in all the people who cherry picked and were handed, for one reason or another, a parking restriction on their street. That rainbow map I showed will still exist 10 years in the future, but everybody else will have to go through this process of requesting and putting together a full street of survey. God, why can't I think of that word tonight? The survey, that's not right, whatever. Get all your petition. Everybody else will have to do a petition, and they will have to, join forces, and they will have to go through these steps. But the existing streets, and I will note too, that one of the things that I think kind of bothered us is that some of these streets that currently have parking restrictions are nearly 40 feet wide. I mean, when we talk about 26 being wide enough for two sides of parking, they're 34, 38 feet wide. They have all the room in the world to accommodate.
But I'm just thinking of some of
Parking.
those streets that I'm aware of, and I don't feel like there's a lot of like non-residents that are gonna be parking on. those
No,
streets.
they're not. If
So
you
why
drive
is-
down them in the middle of the day, non-residents?
Yeah, I'm like, what,
Well, in the area of the high school, that's a big. deal.
outside of the high school, yeah,
Yeah.
outside of the high school.
Well, No.
When we're talking about where these the parking
Yeah,
restrictions.
we have a clear one.
We're talking
Yeah.
about around the high school, we're talking around Old Orchard.
Yeah.
On the residential streets that
Yeah.
order them, right? There's
But also
not really
park.
much more.
I mean, I live right by Southwest Park, and every
yeah.
weekend and every time that there's an event, it's the Hawken House Street. Yes.
No, I just mean the one where they exist right now.
Oh, where
That's
they-
not where
okay.
your colors are. That's what I was referring
Sunnyside
to.
and Lake, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
they
which-
have restricted
I
parking.
agree with,
And that's
I know
about
what you, what's
Old
your,
Orchard, yeah.
yeah, it's, okay.
Yeah.
What is Central's current parking status?
We have no restrictions anywhere.
So you guys would be subject to this new policy?
We would if anybody requested. That's the other thing, is that we originally, and this all got muddied through the years also. We originally thought this would be on request only. So if someone came to it wouldn't be just blanket the whole thing.
Implemented across.
Yeah, and that became one of the arguments, and we were like, sure, we could do it that way. You could go through and work like quarter by quarter sections of the
People will
thing.
get pissed off if
Yeah.
you start putting parking restrictions on an area where people don't have any.
Right.
problems.
But unless someone's requested it, I don't know that we'd want to go through and do
Yeah.
that. like, our street's a prime example. I'm not sure anybody on our street would ask. Now, somebody else driving down our street might feel differently, and at that point,
Why would they ask? If they don't live there, why would they care?
because, well, we get a lot of traffic
Well, I did
coming
used to
from
be some
the
of them.
churches. Yeah, no, yeah.
Now you guys are debating what the council debated in the meeting.
Yeah,
Okay. I'm just trying to get.
It's only fair that we
context.
do, because we're gonna
I
have
was
to
just
enact
curious.
this. I mean, we're gonna have to enact this.
Yeah, I have two questions. First is, what if somebody somebody new moves in on a street where there's already permits or whatever and comes with a concern? Does the new policy apply then? Instead of them just being grandfathered in forever,
Yeah.
is there the opportunity for that?
So this
to change?
came up in the council
That's a good
discussion.
question, yeah.
And my response in the council meeting was, yes, it does.
That's
Now, you
what I
still
would
have to
say.
have 75% of
Right.
that
Right,
people go along with you, but yes.
okay,
so the form that you're talking about, if someone comes on there and says, I live on a street that has a restriction and I want it evaluated, that would come to us and they would have to get their residents to go along with it.
First, you evaluate it,
Yeah,
So.
see if the request would fit your shared parking.
I had not read Clark's email. The disappointment, the primary disappointment is just over the lack of uniform application.
Correct.
Okay.
But
that's been voted on, it's done, so there's not anything we can do about it.
well, I would say. Well, they asked us to come, if it becomes an issue, if we're hearing or it becomes a request that people would like to address existing parking restrictions. I think if I'm not, what I heard was they will come back to us at that time and ask us
Street by street basis.
to come up with a policy, to come up with a plan for retroactivity. But I would also theorize, throw out there that this was our recommendation that they adopted. I don't think anything stops us from making a further recommendation that maybe more clearly defines retroactivity and asking them to evaluate that as well. I mean, that is the proposal process.
That is
Yeah.
the proposal process. Now, I will tell you, if it's pretty much the same thing,
That's,
that-
no, and I think
yeah.
it wouldn't be the same
Yeah,
thing, because
that-
I don't
okay,
think it was
good.
clear.
yeah.
And I think we were answering questions on the fly over the past year plus that became facets that maybe weren't a cohesive plan is what I truly feel. I think we can do a better job, but I do also feel like it would maybe, if we feel like we deserve an opportunity to do a better job, then maybe that's something we could do.
So once you get your website up, we'll have an opportunity to start actually implementing this recommendation that's been accepted as you get requests.
And so
Okay.
Sounds like it
So
sounds
my
like we're
second
making
question-
progress.
is about that process. So how long do you think from request to answer is gonna be? Because I heard like TAC does this and then after this happens, TAC does this. It sounded like it was gonna be months from what I heard.
Well, the difference is TAC didn't used to meet on a monthly basis. Now now you do. So, it used to be that they would only meet when there was a request to meet. So I don't even know how many times, former members met.
When did that
Well,
change?
but
so-
let's just talk about what the process looks like. This is an ordinance, so that means 2 city councils at a meeting is at a minimum after TAC has made recommendations.
For every
For
parking
every
issue.
yes, every change in the parking.
fair
Why,
parts,
why
yeah.
two? Because you have to create.
No.
Oh, no, that's also not
It's
for,
anytime you're gonna change the signs on the street for no parking, that requires.
We do it all by ordinance in Missouri.
It's not a quick process. Not.
Well, just so, I think it would be helpful for then, as somebody who's worked in public service for 30+ years, to have that outline of what the process is for people who put the request in, which will keep you from getting, when's my request gonna be done? When's it gonna be done? When are we gonna hear something? I'm just saying, if it's a 6-month process, just say, the maximum time that this, or the minimum time,
Quite honestly, I wouldn't know until I had an idea of, how many come in and how long the
Well, and,
process would
and
take.
the thing to remember, that this doesn't just go into a vacuum. Eric's in touch with these people.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so it's not as if you just say, okay, I'm never gonna talk to you again now that you've made your request. So I think that helps with the timeline too.
I have a question. How do people know? I think a lot of people have no idea of the process or how this works.
The website, right? Your
The
new
web-
website.
the new website will explain that a little better.
Because like people right now, they have a problem with parking, they call you. right?
Yes,
Okay,
And then you'll say, hey, go to this new website.
I would guess it could be in the Webster Kirkland Times. It could be in the Friday page on the website.
Yeah, we can, we do our full page ad. When this is up and ready, we can put a little,
Good.
or go to
Okay.
the.
Okay.
Go to the website here if you want to do this.
I think it sounds like, I'm excited to start implementing.
I'm wondering too, if, I mean, the no parking zones are all, I recall, they're all just listed under Schedule H or something of the code. Like, is there a procedure by which, and I don't know how often you guys, is there a procedure by which you could? I mean, does every single no parking have to be read if it's all just lumped under one? One area of the code? It's like I think it's Schedule H or something.
Have to be read. What do you-
Yeah, well, he said they have to be read and voted on twice for every single street that gets a new no parking sign. Is there?
It's just a change to the ordinance.
I guess it is, but it's not actually spelled out in the
Are the
ordinance itself.
ordinances per street?
Yeah, they are spelled out in the ordinances.
They are, but it's just the ordinance itself is like, no parking shall be allowed in the areas listed in Schedule H. And Schedule H has this block of this street, this block of
Yes,
this
right.
street, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not the ordinance itself, it's the
No,
Schedule H.
H is actually part of the ordinance,
Okay.
that one for,
I
I get
just-
what you're saying.
Yeah, I just
It would
didn't
be
know.
easier to just be able to change Schedule H, but no,
Okay.
it is it is a part of the ordinances.
well, I think we.
See, and I think that's never, I mean, things like this have never been discussed. So it would make it really helpful.
Well, maybe that's a topic for this commission at some point, is just to go through our traffic ordinance.
I've gone
Yeah.
through it.
You have,
Really?
Yeah.
That would be, okay.
At some point, I think I realized I was the only person
Who is the
who
expert?
currently knows what's happening in 60.5 of the ordinance. Probably not anymore, but at one point.
Who would be considered the expert? City?
I bet you know something.
It depends on,
it's a large,
it depends on which part you're talking
Yeah.
about, the two gentlemen sitting
I
at
was gonna
this
say,
other
one of you
table or
would be my
the.
guess.
We used to amend ours quite a bit in University City and got familiar with it. And so I haven't done it as much here, so I'm not that familiar, but learned on the job mostly.
All right, these are some I just pulled out, because at one point we summarized this. And again, I didn't intend to get into these far into the weeds, but these are some of our, we have a resident, this is what I was talking about before. We have residential districts, we have congested districts. And I think there was a third kind of district. And then residential parking zones, which is not necessarily a residential district. They were done two different ways. So
They were probably done at two different points of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but under two different processes. Here's where I said, one or more of the residents of a qualifying area petitions the chief of police. And that was all it took. But then the other one was 30% of the property owners must sign a petition. So I don't know how ours got to be 75 when this one is 30. In fact, I think ours was 30 to be honest.
75 because it mimicked,
Sidewalk.
yeah.
But no, that was 75% of the people who are parked on a street are not residents. For trying to figure out if there were non-residents parked on the street. But I think what we put in ours was 30% of the property owners should sign a petition based on this section of the code 60.56 for parking in.
I believe it said the
Permit parking
majority of the
district.
residents on the street.
Okay.
Well, I think we can continue this discussion forever. Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone, and we will continue it, but, we need to review the traffic ordinance. That would be a recommendation. And I think Clark will have some input at the next meeting as well. So to be continued at this point. Thank you, Carrie. Mayor Arnold and Eric. Okay. Mayor Arnold. Do you have the city
I do have a few city.
update? We're gonna
updates.
skip right in the interest of time. We're gonna
Okay.
skip down there.
As you all probably know, we did adopt the comprehensive plan. Tomorrow night, we will get a presentation from our director of planning about what implementation looks like. And one of the things that we are gonna work pretty hard on is when there are things. We've developed a process. You haven't seen it yet. We tried it out when we had a proposal for front facing garages. Where we have a presentation that
Left on
goes.
the table.
Yeah, it goes to boards and commissions that are, so I'm thinking a lot about when we get to the safe streets kind of stuff. That you all will get to see some of the, not some of, you'll get to see the proposals and make comments on them before. Plan commission will be the one that has to enact most of this before it goes to council. But we have a process in place to get input from you all that will go to planning commission. So that when they make the decision, they have information from you all about what you think. What are the choices that should be made? We haven't done that with things before, so we're really trying to make sure that we get the boards and commissions that are kind of subject matter experts involved as well. So we'll look for that over time. For those of you who might care, we're also gonna get a proposal or a presentation tomorrow on ADUs and short-term rentals, accessory dwelling units and short-term rentals. There are a couple of dates to keep in mind. Saturday is Make a Difference Day. If you would like to participate, city website has some opportunities. Also on Saturday, 3:00 is the renaming ceremony for the sculpture park in honor of Jerry Welch. That's 3 to 4:30, I believe. We are taking public input for the new skate park and the potential performance park. October 29th from 5 to 7 is the first open house for that one.
So the Rexon?
It is at the Rexa, yeah. And then also, exciting news, Oxford Bend Park, does anybody even know where this is? The old McDonald's that went down, their contract has been signed, construction will begin. Sanan, do we know whether, or actually that's Parks more than you? Adam,
Big
but-
Bend where the old
Well,
McDonald's.
very
and
imminent,
remember.
Yeah,
Like
it's
Big
within the
Bend
next-
and Sparrow
yeah.
Creek Shopping
Yeah,
Center.
in the next
We're
few weeks.
sort of right at Mason.
Okay,
Yeah, as you
So-
say, doesn't even seem like Webster.
Well, only half of it
Edge,
was.
yeah, exactly.
So there will be, that will hopefully by spring be ready to go. It'll be great for the greenway and hopefully a nice segue. Gateway, that's what I wanted, into the community.
Thank you. Do we have any other new business?
No.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, reminder, next meeting is November 17th. It's getting close to Thanksgiving is. What do you want to say? Okay,
Something like that.
all right.
I would just ask if you haven't accepted the calendar invite to do that. That way I don't have to pester you later. If we're gonna be at the meeting, so that way we know if we have a quorum.
Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?